Thursday, Stephen A. traveling down to Nashville. So Dave Rothenberg taking his spot, but he will be back tomorrow for one of the great days of the entire sports calendar. There, in my mind, is nothing better than the NFL draft. We've got it all over the place here on ESPN Radio. We're going to get into it. Connor Rogers, live 2 o'clock Eastern, to help us break everything down going on in the NFL draft. Locally, for the Jets and the Giants, of course, the New York teams, they go 3, they go 6, they go 17. You've got so many storylines. You know, the Raiders are telling everybody, get out of here. We don't even want you here. We don't even want you here. No scouts. You're not welcome. We want 2 guys to handle this. It's Mayock. It's Gruden. It's delicious is what it is. I'm sorry. I don't know if you're like this. I cannot get enough of the NFL draft. We'll get into it a lot today. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776 now. Time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, and no contracts. I mean, there's so much going on in the world of sports. I mean, I know we don't, and I like hockey. We don't talk a ton of hockey, and we'll get to the NBA in a nanosecond. Did you see what happened last night in the NHL? San Jose and Vegas. There's a 3-goal lead in the third period. The Knights take a major 5-minute power play. San Jose scores 4 goals on the power play. They lead. Vegas comes back. They tie it up late. It goes to overtime. That's in a game 7. I will tell you this, and we'll get to the game 5 between Portland and OKC last night in just a moment, that there is, and I stand by this, and I love the NBA. I think we all do. There is nothing better than a game 7 in the NHL. I think you could almost argue that the NHL's postseason is the best postseason that we have going in sports. And that includes NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball. It's just so good. All right, but let's start with where we were last night, and that is Damian Lillard. Yeah, it's so funny. We analyze all these guys, and Durant, and Kyrie Irving, and these big players making big shots. I actually am at the point, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, where I think you can look at Damian Lillard and say he is unequivocally underrated. He is awesome. What do you have, 34 in the first half last night? He finishes with 50. He hits this bomb of a shot from 37 feet, or about 37 feet. How about this stat? And I just heard this very recently from a dear friend. He said 30-plus feet in this postseason. You know what Dame Lillard is shooting? Like, you'd say, what is he, 2 for 10? No. He's about 8 for 12 is what he is. That is unbelievable. And that's Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. Let's take a listen to Dame Lillard, who, and you would agree, right? Of all the guys that we love in the NBA, that Lillard has to be right up there as far as just, he's underrated. Wouldn't you say? I mean, he's underrated. That's how good he is. If I said to the average NBA fan, rank the top players for me, where do you think, realistically, the average NBA fan is going to put Dame Lillard? I bet you he's not a top 8. He's got to be. He has to be. He's sensational. And OKC, that's another story completely. But let's hear from Dame Lillard, his thought process on the final shot that he took to win the game and the series last night.
I didn't want to put it in the referee's hands, where if there was contact and maybe they get away with contact, or I end up having to take a tougher shot because there's, contact and they don't want to decide the game. So I was standing there looking at the rim, and I was like, this is a comfortable range. My trainer, Phil Beckner, we was working out the other night in OKC, and he was just like, just take a few deep ones, off the dribble. Let's shoot a few deep ones. And he was like, I'm telling you, you're going to hit one of these. When I was standing there, I was like, I'm going to shoot it. He was a little bit off of me, and I was like, it's enough space for me to just raise up and shoot it for game. And at the last second, he stepped towards me a little bit, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to pound dribble, sidestep, and raise up, and I just had to let it fly, shoot the ball high in the air to give it a chance, and that's what I did.
And that's what he did, and away we go, and Portland moves on. So, and this funny thing, there was a couple of series. I think the 2 series that realistically most people thought you could have an upset in the first round was this one. In fact, if you go to the Vegas lines and look at the numbers, Oklahoma City was the favorite to win this series. Like, the betting public, the favorite to win this series was OKC. And you saw that they were clearly outclassed, which is amazing to you because it's all about the star power, right? Now, Lillard is an elite star. But then when you go on from there and you look at what OKC has, with Westbrook and George. And you know what's amazing? And I'm a Knicks fan, and let me just, I know it. It's national show and everyone's listening, but can I just step back for a second? To watch Enes Kanter, of all, like the Knicks wanted nothing to do with him. They kicked him to the curb, and he wins. I guess he's playing with a separated shoulder last night. He's become, like a hero to the Blazers fans. And he comes out and he says, well, I'm just glad the Knicks released me. Great. Right? I mean, can we just leave us alone? We don't need to be the team that's continually beat up over and over and over. But 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. So they move on, and they'll face the winner of Denver and San Antonio. And let's look at that series as well, because a ton of people loved San Antonio to win that series. And they were up 1-0, and they had a lead in game 2, and they let that get away. And then they win game 3, and you think, you know what, the Spurs, they're so grizzled, and they're always competent, and they always get it done. Well, you know what? They lost game 4, they lost game 5, they lost game 5 handily, and now they're looking at right in the eye, elimination. So it may not be the most attractive series, Portland and Denver, but it is the 2-3 in the Western Conference. Tonight, you have to figure, and I think we all agree, that Golden State is going to find their way to another series victory, finish up the Clippers in about 5, and that would be that. And then away you go. All right, let's get to some of these calls. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. I want to play this soundbite because I think this is accurate from John Barry, NBA analyst here on ESPN, saying the Thunder, they just don't play that winning brand of basketball.
I think there's got to be a change in philosophy because 3 straight years first-round exits after they had the Warriors down 3-1 with Kevin Durant, obviously, 4 years ago. 3 exits in a row. I applaud the efforts of Russell Westbrook. He plays harder, maybe harder than anybody in the NBA. But there's got to be a realization that he's got to play different. I saw a graphic last night. He takes almost 37 or 38 shots in elimination games. I don't know what he had last night. I'm guessing somewhere in the 30s. That's not winning basketball.
Well, here's the thing, and this is what we talk about. Big shot, big moment. You want the ball in Kyrie Irving's hands, right? There's no two ways about that. You want the ball in Damian Lillard's hands, and we've come to learn that. And I think, a lot of people slept on him for a while, and now that's not even up for debate. Do you really want the ball in Russell Westbrook's hands? And I love Westbrook, and to average triple-double year after year after year is unbelievable. But, there's something between doing it game 77 against the Charlotte Hornets when they're on a back-to-back and taking over in a big moment when your team desperately needs you. And again, I think that Westbrook is just nothing short of a sensational player. But I think you have to start to raise some questions about him because, John Barry's right. They've had a lot of disappointing endings to seasons recently. And who does that fall on? Well, if it's his team, and we're going to give him all the credit when things work out well, then who gets the blame when they don't? 888-SAY-ESPN. Let's get to some of your calls. We'll get to the NFL draft. There's a ton to do. Let's go to James in Jersey. James, you're on the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio.
Hey, how you doing, Dave? Just a quick thing. I thought it was pretty funny watching the interview at the end of the game to see how salty Paul George was, saying that it's a bad shot. Coming from him and that team, I don't think anybody in the NBA takes a worse shot than him and Russell Westbrook. It's absolutely – I'm sitting there and I'm listening to what he's saying, and I was like, this guy has to be out of his mind because what he's talking about, they've been doing the whole entire season. So that's why they're not even in the NBA playoffs no more. They take the worst shot of all time.
They take awful shot. And you know what the truth is, and thanks for the call, James, is if you watch Westbrook, he's not a great shooter. Like, I still will honestly tell you that as far as athleticism is concerned, that I don't think that there's anyone more athletic than him in the NBA. I guess LeBron, and LeBron just beats everyone just because he's what he is. But realistically, if you look at Russell Westbrook and just how agile and gazelle-like he is, and he can take the ball from end to end, and I guess Antetokounmpo is one of those guys as well. But you understand my point, that he athletically makes it look so easy continuously, but in the biggest moments, let's be fair. If we're going to give Guy credit when he deserves it, and he deserves a ton of credit, but if we're going to give him this credit when he deserves it, you gotta rip him when he's not great. And Russell Westbrook has not been great in the postseason as of late, and that's fair. Let's go to Eric in Jersey. Eric, you're on ESPN Radio.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? First time caller, love the show.
Appreciate it, man. What's going on today, buddy?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk to you about Russell Westbrook and Dame. The reason why everybody's slack on Dame is because we've always seen him lose. Like, always seen him lose. Never seen him really win. He sort of got that Carmelo effect. Like, he's always been great, but never great enough.
Yeah, but I think that changes now, Eric. I think watching him play in this series with the potential of, listen, Denver's good, but I don't think it's a game that they can't win, a series that they can't win. He's great. There's no two ways about it. I mean, Dame Lillard, win or lose, moving forward, has established himself as, I think, without a doubt, a top 10 player in this league.
Top 10?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I feel like you're going to take a lot of people over Dame, man.
Oh, come on. Where would you? I mean, yes, I'll give you LeBron. I'll give you Antetokounmpo. Where are you going?
You're going to go Antetokounmpo. You're going to go LeBron. You're going to go Anthony Davis.
All right.
You're gonna go KD. You're gonna go Steph. You're gonna go Klay Thompson. You're gonna go the whole starting five of Golden State.
No, you're not going the whole starting five of Golden State.
No, I'm just joking.
No, and I don't even know if I'm giving you Klay Thompson, but I'll give you Steph and I'll give you Durant. Where else are you going? And I'll give you LeBron and Antetokounmpo.
Durant, LeBron, Antetokounmpo, James Harden.
All right.
You got we got big man off the Sixers.
Embiid.
The one.
Well, here's my question for you. On a game that they're both healthy, I'll give you that. But all the time, Joel Embiid is not healthy.
That's true.
All the time. So if I got to bank on a guy that's going to be injured, I mean, he's already been injured this postseason. I don't even get game after game out of him.
And he still be balling.
I understand that, but if you're going to give me the choice, and thanks for the call, Eric, that I got to choose between a guy that's going to give me 82 games and be terrific, or a guy that's going to give me 60 games and I never know when he's going to be healthy or not, that to me that's not a debate. Give me the guy that's going to be healthy every single game, time and time and time again. Gabe in Atlanta. Gabe, you're on ESPN Radio.
Hey, Dave. Big fan of you and Stephen A. It was kind of a minor comment, but wanted to just comment on your fact that NHL playoffs is probably the best viewing product.
I love it.
In terms of the major sports, because I'm born and live in Atlanta, don't have the Thrashers anymore, big SEC and NFL baseball fan. But you told me the year when the Rangers and the Kings were in the Stanley Cup Finals, and every single one of those games was an overtime or double overtime game, I was like, I need to tune into playoff hockey every year.
And here's the point, right? You're not even a Rangers or a Kings fan, correct?
No,
right.
Not at all. I don't watch regular season hockey.
Exactly. And I think that a lot of people, I mean, last night, and that's the thing about it, every time someone gets the puck past the red line in Game 7 overtime, you're at the edge of your seat.
Absolutely.
It's awesome. You got anything else, or is that it, Gabe?
No, and just a comment from the last caller. If you look in the next 5 to 8 years, and if you're building an NBA team and you want somebody on your team, I put Dame top 5 looking for the next 5 to 8 years, building a team around. That's my last word.
All right, good stuff. That, of course, is Gabe down in Atlanta. I don't know what you're saying, Nuno. You're spouting something over there, but nobody really knows. I'm going to take another call because I'm not sure if that's what you're looking for. So I will take another one. Let's go to Isaac in Arkansas. Isaac, you're on ESPN Radio. What's up, Isaac?
Hey, man, I just got to chime in on this. What's the biggest issue with Oklahoma, man? It's not Westbrook. I'm telling you, it's the chemistry of the team.
But where do you think that starts? Where do you think that starts?
Well, for one, they got to stop ball hogging. They have to.
But Isaac,
others,
where does that start? Where does the whole ball hogging mentality begin?
It's gonna come. It started. It has to come from Paul George, Westbrook.
It's Westbrook,
and then they have to utilize Steve. They have to utilize Smith down in the post.
Who?
They have to utilize the rest of their team.
Who do they have to utilize down in the post? I mean, Adams. See, the thing with Adams is not a guy that's going to wind up taking 15 shots a game. Adams is a guy that's going to clean up loose change and get a rebound and lay it in or block a shot. Like he does the dirty work. The truth is, you're right, Isaac, and thanks for the phone call. I don't need to see Westbrook and George attempting 60 shots a game. But who else do I want shooting? Do I want Dennis Schroeder putting up 15 shots a game? Do I want Jeremy Grant putting up a ton of shots? I mean, I guess the question is, do they really have that next guy in line? But you're right. They take a lot of shots, Oklahoma City. If I was an OKC fan, see, for me, if I'm an OKC fan, I never get over that absolute collapse up 3-1 against Golden State. I would never get over that. There are certain games as a fan of a team that you look at, you're like, I'd never get over that. Like last night. Now, I know that there are brand new infancy stages of their career or tenure here, and that's Vegas. But if you're Vegas and you have that kind of a lead and you let that get away, we have Stephen A. is on the phone. Delightful. All right, let's bring him on, the host of the show, Stephen A. Smith. What's up, Stephen? How are you, man?
How are you, man? How's everything going?
I got to be honest, Stephen. I think I'm holding down the fort very well today.
Well, listen, you always are, and I appreciate it, and I thank you for it. I'm traveling to the NFL draft, but I knew you had to be talking about Damian Lillard and Russell Westbrook and those boys, so I thought I'd call in the first segment of the show. I'm right now trying to decide, Dave, whether that was the biggest – that was the best shot, not the biggest because there have been bigger moments. Michael Jordan has hit a game-winning the NBA Finals. Derek Fisher hit a game-winning against San Antonio deep into the playoffs, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm trying to figure out right now if I've seen a better game-winning shot, buzzer beater, to win a playoff game in NBA history than what I saw last night.
It was sensational.
I can't think of one.
Yeah, I think you're right. It was sensational. And the thing is, he did it against, and don't you agree, and I started the show by saying this, he's underrated. Like, as great as he is, he doesn't get the conversation, Stephen, that I think he deserves. He is a great talent. He's elite. He carries that team. He's a wonderful player. And honestly, as much as we talk about so many of these guys in the NBA who deserve a lot of love, I think that we do not include him as much as we should with the great players.
We have to. I'll go a step further. You know, I interviewed him for my for my SportsCenter special about a week and a half ago, and he and I had a lengthy discussion while we were in L.A. And listen, this is a guy that I think warrants strong consideration to be first team All-NBA, even over Steph Curry. Here's why. Steph Curry averages 27. He averages 25.9, 26 points a game. 7 assists per game. He doesn't shoot 47% from the field like Steph Curry does. He shoots 44%. He doesn't shoot 43% from three-point range like Steph Curry does. He shoots 36%. But he asked the question, and I'll ask it for him. Who has done more with less?
No one.
And that is what I think we've got to come to that conclusion. When you look at Steph Curry, debating with Max earlier today, I'm like, Steph Curry's phenomenal. He's the greatest shooter I've ever seen. But it does help that you have Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant. And it does help that you have a point forward who's incredibly cerebral as a basketball player in Draymond Green as a point forward that gets underestimated. And a system designed by Steve Kerr that also helps you. You're Damian Lillard. You played 96% of the games in your career. You've only missed 24 games in 7 years. You played 80 games this year. You're the number one option. Everybody knows it. You've had to play games without Nurkic. You've had to play games without C.J. McCollum. And you have done what this man has done and averaging what he is averaging and leading them to 53 wins in the season and giving them back-to-back number 3 seeds in the Western Conference. And, oh, by the way, 6 playoff game winners in NBA history. 2 of them were by Michael Jordan. Another 2 was by Damian Lillard. At some point in time, when do you look at him, at least for this season, and say, excuse me, he doesn't deserve to be first team All-NBA this season, where you consider what he's had to work with, what he's been working against, with CP3 and James Harden in Houston, with the Big Three in Golden State, with Russell Westbrook and Paul George in Oklahoma City. At some point in time, you do have to ask yourself, what does this man have to do to make first team?
Yeah, he really is amazing. And today would be the day that you would pile all the accolades on him. But, we watched the other night. James Harden goes 3 for 20. I think misses over. He was over his first 14 or 15 or whatever the number was, Stephen A. And you think to yourself, if Lillard ever gave you a game where he was 3 for 20, they'd probably lose the game by 27 points.
That's right. I mean, when Max was making the case this year, well, you know what? Even without Steph Curry, the Golden State Warriors haven't been what we thought they would be. Well, what would the Portland Trailblazers be without Lillard?
They'd be nothing. They'd be terrible.
They'd be one of the worst teams in the league.
Absolutely.
So I just think the time has arrived for us to look at him and to look at him considerably differently than we have looked at him, and to also ask ourselves this question. If Lillard were playing in L.A. or New York, what would we be saying?
Oh my God! I mean, you know the Knicks as well as I do. If he played on the Knicks, the city would. There's passion and emotion around a 15-win, 17-win Knicks team. If Dame Lillard played for the Knicks, you'd put statues up around New York about him for him. He's that good.
I gotta tell you, I look at him right now, and listen, he's off the stadium. He doesn't want to leave Portland. He loves it there. He's not thinking about going anywhere. Everybody needs to get over it. But what I was shocked by last year is that I asked him to hypothetically entertain, just for my edification. Yeah, I know you don't want to leave Portland. I know you're not going anywhere. But if you had a choice to pick between the two, what would you want, L.A. or New York? L.A. with LeBron or the New York Knicks? At that time, Dave, he actually told me the New York Knicks. He said it would be New York. The challenge of New York, of resurrecting that franchise. I don't run from that stuff, and I never will. That's what he said at the time. He said, but you can dream on because I'll never want to leave Portland.
Well, they got you can't even see a diamond in the rough anymore. I mean, he is a bona fide absolute superstar. So let me ask you this. When you look at OKC, and they were favored in the series. I mean, a lot of people, say, well, Portland was the better team and they had home court. But in Vegas, Oklahoma City was the favorite team. How disappointing is this season to lose again in the first round for them?
It's incredibly disappointing on several levels. Number one, since Kevin Durant had left, they haven't won a first-round series. They haven't even won a road playoff game. Kevin Durant lost his last 3 road playoff games against Golden State in that series before he departed. Since then, there have been 9 more with Russell Westbrook. He hasn't won one single road game. That's number one. Number two, you have a backcourt with 2 stars. Russell Westbrook making $35 million, Paul George making $30 million. That's $65 million. You're going home for the second consecutive year in the first round. Number 3, you had a 15-point lead with 7 minutes and 12 seconds left. You had an 8-point lead with over 3 minutes left. And you lost. Paul George missed 2 pivotal free throws down the stretch. Russell Westbrook, you got the ball in your hands, but you're shooting less than 40% from the field. Paul George had just drilled a pull-up perimeter jump shot. He had been hot all game. He had 36. You don't give him the ball. You call your own number. These are the kind of things that you look at because Russell Westbrook is unquestionably a superstar talent in this league. He cannot be guarded. He's phenomenal. He's a phenomenal athlete. He goes 100 miles per hour. He never cheats you with effort. He wants it badly. He goes after it. So there's never any questions in regards to that stuff. But a consistent question against him has been his decision-making. And last night, glaringly, in the last minute of that game, was a decision-making faux pas because Paul George should have had the ball in his hand. He's not some secondary star. Paul George is a star. He's a star at the level of Russell Westbrook, some would argue. And with him being the hotter man on the court, another one of your max players on that roster, paid to be in these moments, you have to give him the ball, considering the kind of game he was having compared to the kind of game you were having. And the fact that that wasn't the decision that Russell Westbrook and or Billy Donovan did not make is going to be something that comes down on the shoulders of Russell Westbrook, whether he likes it or not. So now we're sitting here, and a year removed from talking about whether or not Russell Westbrook was one of the top 5 players in the NBA, we are now talking about whether or not he's a top 5 point guard because decision-making falls into that equation. And you've got Steph Curry, you've got Kyrie Irving, you've got Damian Lillard now, you've got CP3. You're looking at the top 5 point guards in the game, and there's actually a question mark as to whether or not Russell Westbrook is in that conversation. That is not a good thing for the Oklahoma City Thunder. It damn sure is not a good thing for him.
Well, Stephen A., always a pleasure. Enjoy Nashville. It's a great city, and enjoy the draft. And I hope that the Giants can do well down there. So thanks as always, and I'll do the best I can to keep us afloat here.
Good looking out, Dave. Thank you so much as always.
All right, that of course, Stephen A. The NBA playoffs are on ESPN Radio. Tune in tonight for Game 5 as Durant and the Warriors host the Clippers. That's presented by Indeed. Coverage begins at 10 o'clock Eastern on most ESPN radio stations. All right, so you heard it from Stephen A. You've heard it from me. I mean, this guy's underrated. I mean, there is no 2 ways about it. Damian Lillard, underrated. And maybe have we overrated Westbrook, George, and that combination just a little bit? Because it's another season of coming up short. in the big spot. It's the Stephen A. Smith Show. Dave Rothenberg filling in ESPN Radio and ESPN News.
The Stephen A. Smith Show is being brought to you by Barbasol. Hey, sports fans, Barbasol is offering you a chance to... The two-time Super Bowl champion, who still won't be a Hall of Famer, in all likelihood, because when he wasn't winning those 2 Super Bowls, he was busy missing the playoffs most of the time. Even though I think a 2-time Super Bowl champion warrants consideration to the Hall of Fame. And if he was a basketball player, he'd damn sure be in the Hall of Fame with some of these Hall of Famers that are in there. But this is football we're talking about here. So let's take that into consideration. Now, the one thing I will say, because all of that was in defense of Odell Beckham Jr., who I don't believe deserved what Gettleman implied. But I will say this. When I think about Odell Beckham Jr., this is the one thing I can't come to his defense of. You're arguing with a Twitter troll who brings up your playoff performance. And Odell Beckham Jr. intimates about him being in the playoffs and what have you done? It could have easily happened that the Twitter troll could have came back and said, I've won as many playoff appearances as you. As many playoff games, rather, as you. And I've been to one less playoff appearance than you. Because Odell Beckham Jr. only been in the playoffs once. And in that game, you were targeted 11 times. You dropped 4 passes. So let's pump the brakes and be mindful of who you're chirping at. It's not necessary, and it doesn't all make you look good. But my real focus is on Gettleman. And the fact that here you are implying, in my opinion, that Odell Beckham Jr. was the problem. And we all know that the New York Giants were a problem. Got a busy signal. I need that fixed, please. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. That's what we're talking about here. So when you imply that Odell Beckham Jr. is the problem, that really, really rubs me the wrong way. Because everybody and their mother knows Eli Manning was the problem. Let's stop that nonsense. Let's be honest about what's transpired with the New York Giants. Let's understand that as the NFL draft approaches this Thursday, we're all hoping and praying that the Giants are smart enough to take Dwayne Haskins. Not because that's your only need, but it's because Eli Manning has been relatively bad over the last 2 or 3 years that we know it's time to move in a different direction.
Presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
Well, it is the Stephen A. Smith Show. Dave Rothenberg filling in Draft Day Eve, we shall call it. Now, if you missed the opening segment to the show, go check it out on demand in the Stephen A. Smith Show Podcast Center, brought to you by the Capital One Saver Card. Earn 4% cash back on dining and entertainment, 2% at grocery stores, and 1% on all other purchases. What's in your wallet? So we start with the NBA and the game of the night, clearly, because Philadelphia, what they did to Brooklyn was just, it was awful. And you had a feeling that that series might go like that. And every time you kind of questioned, Brooklyn would hang in a game. And then the more you got into the series, the more you realized that they weren't going to hang in, that Philly just has way more talent, in fact, that Brooklyn does. And in the end, talent wins out, and that's what you saw. But really what's to be discussed is what Dame Lillard did last night, just to throw up 50. And I want to take a listen to Paul George, who was not happy, who says, you know, that shot was a lucky shot or a bad shot or whatever. Might be true, but it still went in and sent you home. And here's Paul George.
I mean, that's a bad shot. I don't care what anybody says, that's a bad shot. But, hey, he made it. That story won't be told that it was a bad shot. We live with that.
I get it. You look at those shots, you say that's a bad shot just because of where he takes it from. But is there such a thing? See, Steph Curry almost made this 32-footer acceptable. And I know it was, a 37-footer or whatever it was. But it's almost become routine where when guys take shots like that, you think to yourself, that's going to go in. And I told you the stat at the beginning of the show. He's 8 of 12 for 30-plus feet in the postseason. So is it a bad shot? It appears to be a bad shot. But is it? I don't know. Let's go to Dave in Connecticut. Dave, you're on ESPN Radio. What's up, my man?
Not much. I just have the same thing as Paul George. It just occurs to me that is a bad shot. I know it goes in, but what would the dialogue be today if that didn't go in? What would we be saying? It just seems like it's more luck than anything else.
You say that, but Dave, these guys are unbelievable shooting long range shots. Like when Steph Curry makes those 33-footers, do you say, boy, that's just luck, or is that part of the arsenal of his game?
It's definitely arsenal for a majority of these guys. But as a coach on the sidelines, I got to believe you're going, what's he doing dancing around at 40 feet, drive to the basket, and, try to get fouled or kick it to somebody for a 25-footer as opposed to a 40-footer.
It's funny to think, and thanks for the call, Dave, that the 25-footer is the more reasonable and understated shot. Again, certain guys, you just kind of say they have full range, free range. Dame Lillard is one of those guys. He has, and we started the show by saying this, he is at that level where he can do almost no wrong right now. He scored 50 last night. Ended the series on a what looked like people saying, you got Paul George, you got the caller saying a terrible shot. That's not a terrible shot. Now, Giannis takes that shot, it's a terrible shot. But there are certain players, and not a lot of them, but certain players that they have no restrictions when it comes to the distance they can shoot from. And Dame Lillard happens to be one of those guys. Now, I thought that San Antonio was going to get by Denver. If Denver does move past and win that series, I think you got to take Portland, don't you? I mean, and talk about a team that gets the most out of what they are. That to me is always the best sign of a good coach. Who gets the most out of what he has talent-wise? Lillard's great. McCollum's great. After that, I mean, there's not a lot of star power on that team, is there? Let's go to John in Florida. John, you're on the Stephen A. Smith Show with Dave Rothenberg sitting in. What's up, John?
Hey, how you doing? Good afternoon.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Hey, I just wanted to implement that I overheard, you and Stephen A., and I wanted to also incorporate that Russell Westbrook and Paul George have both not proven themselves throughout their tenure in the NBA, especially in the playoffs. They haven't. LeBron has stopped them multiple times. Chiming in with the Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard the last few years has been phenomenal. So Paul George hasn't proven himself. I know he was a little injured in the playoffs, but he has not proven himself. And I hate to say it, neither has Westbrook. And I'm just gonna, make sure that.
Look, Westbrook, they had the collapse against Golden State. They got bounced in the first round last year. They got bounced in the first round this year. He's got another big-time player alongside him now. Yeah, you know what? There are some guys, and thanks for the call, John, that you look at and you say are 82 gamers, right? That you know that every single night out there, you're going to get this unbelievable effort. He's going to put up, and literally he's going to put up 25 points and 13 rebounds and 11 assists, and he's going to give you everything that he has. And through 82 games, that's incredible. But then for one reason or another, it ratchets up to a different level, and maybe that's just not meant to be for a guy like Russell Westbrook. Again, I still think he's a wonderful player, but you saw in the biggest moments of this series who was better, him or Dame Lillard, and you don't have to look too far to find the answer to that. Let's go to Jay in Alabama. Jay, you're on ESPN Radio.
Hey, Dave. This may just be a generic question, because I'm not an expert on basketball, but what I have watched out of Russell Westbrook is, this man gives, he goes from 0 to 100 is just as soon as, the game tips off. And do you think it's just possible? I heard Charles Barkley say this last night, and I've been thinking this about this guy, but do you think this guy is just, given so much during the regular season that by the time the playoffs gets here, this man is just absolutely burnt out? I mean, I just want to hear your opinion on it.
No, I don't think so. I don't, because you can see in spurts that he's capable of doing this in the postseason. It just feels like for whatever reason, the biggest moment, and I don't want to say it's too big for him because I don't believe that. But maybe it's fair to say other guys are just better at succeeding in that moment than he is. Because again, it's not like you watch him; he's 2 for 26, right? He's not egregiously bad. But in the big moments of these huge games, do you look at him and say, "All right, Westbrook, it's his time," like you do with LeBron, like you do with Kyrie Irving? I mean, let's be fair. See, Kyrie Irving is almost, and thanks to the call, Jay, the flip side of this. Kyrie Irving is, I'll make it through the regular season. I'll drag my what feels like old body through the regular season. Get me to the playoffs, and you're going to see a completely different player. And that's what we've seen. Is there a bigger, better closer right now than Kyrie Irving in a big spot? And the answer is probably not. Now, Westbrook, I think 82 games is the better player. But in the postseason, I'll take Irving over Westbrook in a big spot. Down 1, 10 seconds left. To me, that's a no-brainer. Let's go to Mike in New York. Mike, you're on ESPN Radio.
What's going on, Dave?
What's up, Mike? How are you, man?
I'm all right, man. I'm a big fan of this show. You know, Stephen A., man, he's the truth, man.
He is the truth. You think I'm doing a decent job today, though, with him? Not here?
Nah, you do a great job anytime you fill in for him.
All right, good. So you and I are cool.
Nah, we cool all day, every day.
Good. What do you got today, Mike?
Yeah, man. You know, I'm a New York fan. You know, I'm a Knicks fan and I'm a Giants fan. But you know, we talking about the Westbrook situation. You know, he goes 100 miles an hour. He just needs to slow the game down, let the game come to him, and you know everything will be all right with him. But other than that, I feel like he needs a better coach. I feel like Mark Jackson will get through to him.
Why so?
Because Mark Jackson he's a preacher, and he's somebody that gets the best out of his players. He did it with Golden State. He's the one that should be getting the credit for Steph and Clay and Draymond.
Mike, I appreciate the phone call and thanks for the kind words. I wonder, I mean, again, it's another disappointing ending to a season for Oklahoma City. I wonder if you start to think about what changes can be made. Because you can't just go into this again the same way. It's another year where, if I said to you at the beginning of the year, expectations for OKC. All right, they're bounced in the first round in 5 games. Does that work? No. So you've come up short this year. You came up short last year, and that's on the heels of completely collapsing where you could have made the biggest statement in the franchise's history. So I don't know what the answer is, but you'd have to think that there may be changes coming for the Thunder. ESPN Radio presented by Progressive Insurance, making it so easy to bundle your home and car insurance. Now, 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. We'll continue with the NBA for a couple more minutes, and then, I can't even wait anymore. I'm a Giants fan. They won 8 games the last 2 years. By the end of September, I have nothing to look forward to until the draft. I'm not even exaggerating. When the Giants got, week 5 last year, I started telling my buddies April 25th. April 25th is the next day that I'm going to be excited about the Giants. So in the 2 o'clock Eastern hour, we're going to get heavy into the NFL draft. Connor Rogers from Bleacher Report is going to join us right at the top of the 2 o'clock hour Eastern, and we're going to take a ton of your calls. But now we stick with the NBA. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Rothenberg in for Stephen A., ESPN Radio, and ESPN News.
This show and all of ESPN is streaming live.
Kevin Durant is a career 27-point per game scorer on 49% shooting and 38% from three-point range. Let me ask y'all a question. Has Kevin Durant been ticked off in the past? I'm sure he has. Has he been frustrated and a bit cantankerous and has spoken out? Yes, he has. How did he play afterwards? He bust your living butt. That's what he did. He did it the other night in Game 3 against the Clippers. And then again in Game 4. I can get in a one-on-one, with Patrick Beverly. He said, but I'm Kevin Durant. You know who I am. Y'all know who I am. That's what he said. And then he went out and showed us who the hell he is. So if your definition of Kevin Durant not being able to handle the media in New York, if you're talking about him snapping back at you and that's your definition of him not being able to handle something, so be it. But let's not act like Kevin Durant, because of scrutiny and because people are getting on his nerves, forgets how to be a superstar, because he does not. If Kevin Durant averages better than 35 a game every time he's pissed off, trust you me, his number one antagonist is gonna be me. Whatever it takes. 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 For him to be a New York Knick and ball, fine. If I have to protect him against you people, I'll do it. If I have to sit up there and get on his last damn nerves so he drops 40 because he's ticked off, I'll do that too. Because as a New York Knicks fan, we have suffered enough. I mean, why don't you just take a knife and stab us in the chest? How much are we supposed to take? Want to hear about this attitude? I don't give a damn what Kevin Durant's attitude is. As long as he comes to ball, particularly at Madison Square Garden, I'm good. Give a damn what he does. Because you know he's a good guy. He ain't going to break any laws. He ain't going to be stupid and engage in lawless behavior. The worst we can expect from him is that he got an attitude, which is going to fuel headlines in New York City. So what?
Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
From Nashville, it'll be draft day here on ESPN Radio, and you can catch the entire draft from pick 1 all the way through the last one, Mr. Irrelevant, on ESPN Radio. It's on ABC TV. It's on ESPN TV. So we have more than enough options for you. Now, Stephen A. Smith Show brought to you by Pennzoil Synthetics, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics, and of course, do that today. We're on ESPN Radio, ESPN News, of course. The number to chime in on, 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Couple games tonight, Utah-Houston. You would expect, and Utah with a good effort the other night, not getting swept. You'd expect Houston to win that and move on, and then you have your dream series. Because Golden State's going to win. You have a dream series. And the next round, I think it's fair to say the next round is as enticing a series for the second round of the NBA postseason as we've ever seen. I'm going to have Milwaukee and Boston. I mean, that's a conference finals. I'm going to have Philadelphia and Toronto. That's a conference finals. I'm going to have Houston and Golden State. That's a conference finals. And then I'm going to have the guy that we saw yesterday, Portland, go up against either Denver or San Antonio. The second round of the postseason is going to be excellent. Anthony in Oregon, where it all takes place. Anthony, you're on ESPN Radio.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Big fan of the show. Big fan of Stephen A. I wanted to ask you today, what do you thought Portland's chances were making out of the West?
Out of the West? No, I don't expect that to happen.
You think ends up beating them?
I think Golden State or Houston would beat them. But I will tell you this, that I give Portland, right now, if you said you got to put your money on Portland or whoever they're going to play in the next round, I'll put my money on Portland. I think they get by Denver and or San Antonio. I love their chances there.
So you think they go to the Western Conference Finals?
I do. I think that Portland goes to the Western Conference Finals. They're a good team. They're well coached. Stotts does a great job there. I mean, Cantor's come in and despite the separated Charlotte, which he lets everybody know about, he's played well and does add a piece there. Yeah, they're a good team. Absolutely, you should be excited about them. And thanks for the call, Anthony. So, all right, an hour in the NBA. Now we got to move our attention to the NFL draft. It all starts tomorrow. We've had conjecture. We've had speculation. We've had conversation about it. The waiting is over. We are 1 day away from the start of the NFL draft. We will break that down into a fine powder in just...
I can do more.
Coast to coast. The Stephen A. Smith Show starts right now.
Hour 2 of the Stephen A. Smith Show. Dave Rothenberg in for Stephen A. He is back tomorrow. He'll be down in Nashville and breaking down all things NFL draft. We believe that the Cardinals go one with Kyler Murray, and everybody I've spoke to Mike Tenenbaum earlier. He's doing the draft for us here on ESPN Radio. He said, he believes it. You look at Vegas, they firmly believe it. I mean, it's like minus 600 for Kyler Murray to go number 1. 2, all we've heard is that it'll be Bosa. And then I think 3 is where the draft really kind of opens up. All right, Dave Rothenberg in for Stephen A. on ESPN Radio and ESPN News for about another 35 minutes. This Mother's Day show, Mom, just how much you do appreciate her and support with the 1-800flowers.com. Right now, you can get 36 sorbet roses for just $36. To order, just go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. We're going to go to Connor Rogers from Bleacher Report in just a moment, but I want to play a little bit of sound with you because, I mean, a lot of what we hear I think is probably true, and a lot of what we hear I think is probably just lies, and that we have to decipher what's true and what's not. Let's take a listen. Chris Mortensen this morning on Golic and Wingo says now he would not be surprised if the Giants go quarterback at 6th overall. That's all right. I can find it if you can't find a cat. All right. Don't worry. No sweat. I'll find it. I'm very, very capable here. Chris Mortensen saying he wouldn't be surprised if the Giants went quarterback 6 overall.
I think that Dave Gettleman has shown, first of all, I think this is a deep draft in the defensive line. We know they want to address the defensive line, but it's deep with the defensive line. I think at 17, and they got a lot of draft capital, at 17, there will be a good defensive lineman there at 17. So whether they take one at 6 or if Dave Gettleman decides to get even more aggressive and move up higher to grab his quarterback, I'm not going to be shocked. Dave has a history of being aggressive moving up. And so that's one team that everybody's just saying they'll take their defensive line, and they may at number 6 and leave it at that. But I'm not going to be surprised if they're more aggressive than that with the quarterback.
Now, everything I've heard is that the Giants are going to go defense 6, 17 quarterback, or move up into that 11-12 range. And now you've heard these reports from Diana Rossini, and she says that the Redskins absolutely love Dwayne Haskins. And from everything I've heard, the Giants absolutely do not love Dwayne Haskins. In fact, Todd McShay, ESPN draft expert on First Take, says he does not even expect the Giants to go ahead and go after the Ohio State quarterback.
I think he should be a Giant. They should take him at number 6. I don't believe that they're going to. I think they're going to take a defensive player. I think they'll try maybe at 17, whether it's Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, one of these other quarterbacks to address the need later. But I would not, if I'm a Giants fan, don't expect for the number 6 pick to be a quarterback. I keep getting the same information over and over again. They're going in a different direction. And if that's not the case, then Gettleman did a heck of a job of lying to all of us.
And that's not what he did at all in last year's draft, mind you. Last year's draft, Gettleman went Barkley from day one all the way through. They took the podium and took Saquon Barkley. So his MO has not been to put up some fake ideas of what this organization plans to do. All right, Connor Rogers, Bleacher Report, joins us here on ESPN Radio. Stephen A. Smith Show, Dave Rothenberg sitting in. Connor, welcome to the show. It's a very busy time of year.
Yeah, Dave, thanks for having me. It is absolutely crazy right now.
Are you a little stressed with the amount of work that you're going to have to be doing over the next 48 to 72 hours?
No, not at all. This is my favorite week of the year. I think if any of the stress comes out, it's more from the rumors, what's fake, what's real, what you should believe. That's the hardest part to dissect.
All right,
right now.
help us decipher everything here. Let's start at the top. Kyler Murray, the mindset is, in your belief, he goes 1 to Arizona. Yes, correct?
Yes, I would be floored if that does not happen.
So Murray 1, and then you come to San Francisco. Bosa 2 to San Fran. Is that going to happen?
That's going to happen as well. They are all over Nick Bosa. They love Nick Bosa. That's going to be the number 2 overall pick. I know people have said Quinnen Williams, but that pick will be Nick Bosa.
All right, so now I think is where it gets interesting, and that's the Jets at 3. Because rumblings have the Jets very intrigued at moving down, and I guess the Redskins seemingly now are very intrigued to move up to potentially go after Dwayne Haskins. Is there real fuel, real fire here that the Jets could potentially move down into the teens?
Yes, there is. This is where the draft starts. That's the spot that I think the Jets would be comfortable with moving to, not beyond that. And the most important thing to note here, Dave, I heard you say it earlier, the Redskins love Dwayne Haskins. And the second most important thing to note here is the Jets are willing to move to the point where I think it will be a discounted trade, which might sound crazy to some people, but this will not be the normal price we're used to, making that big of a jump from 15 to 3. So, and I think the Redskins are aware that there's a lot of teams picking in the top 10 that like Dwayne Haskins. So they have to be aggressive to go get him. He's not even getting close to the 15th overall pick. The Jets would love to move this selection. If they can't, I think they go with Quinnen Williams. That's a pretty obvious pick that I expect them to make if they can't move. But in these next 24 hours, the Jets will do everything to get more capital and get out of that slot.
So let me just ask you this. You said that they would take a discounted rate to move back to 15, like not the typical value?
Yeah. truly believe so. 15-3 is a huge jump.
Right.
I mean, the most obvious starting point you would think of is that the Jets get the 15th overall pick, their second rounder, which I believe is 46, and then next year's first, which is a very, very valuable pick. I think that's where the normal talks would start. I'm not even sure that's the deal, with how badly the Jets would probably love to get out of this spot. They have too many holes and not enough picks to fill out that roster.
Yeah, but now you're not getting a star. Like Josh Allen, Quinnen Williams, there's the potential these guys are absolute stars on the defensive side of the football. And if I'm moving down to 15, I'm going to get a good player, but maybe not a star-type caliber player. And I get it. Now I get a second and maybe I get a first, so I'm kind of recouping some of what I lost. But wouldn't you rather? I mean, pass rush. The Jets, you know this, Connor. They never have a pass rusher. I mean, they haven't had a legitimate pass rusher since John Abraham. Wouldn't it be smarter just to say, you know what? Be damned with any trade. I'm taking Josh Allen. I think he's going to get 15 sacks a year, and I'm going in that direction.
Yeah, well, I side with you that I think it is really risky to go from 3 to 15. Now, there are people that believe 4 quarterbacks will go in these top 15 picks, which is going to push good football players down the board, whether that the Jets still need a center. Garrett Bradbury might be there. Brian Burns from Florida State is a very, very good outside rusher. But the Jets just can't surrender this pick for the sake of surrendering it. I really am a Quinnen Williams fan. He is Fletcher Cox. Everything about him is identical to Fletcher Cox. He could even be better. That's how talented this guy is. I think Josh Allen is a fine player. I think he does have some refinement in his pass rush plan, but he could do so many different things at linebacker, similar to how Anthony Barr, a guy the Jets tried to bring in this year, can. So if they get out of this pick, you're not just going to give it away. But it is really interesting how much noise there is, how they would just love to move out of this selection because they feel like Quinnen Williams is the best player available overall, but they also feel like they're set on the interior of the defensive line with Leonard Williams and Henry Anderson there.
All right, Connor, I'm putting you right on the spot. Do the Jets trade out of 3? Do they trade from 3 to 15? At the end of the day, I don't want projections. Does it get done?
Sure.
Does it get done?
I think it does. I really do. I think they want more draft capital. They need more draft capital. I'm not saying it's the right move because if you do stay, like I said, they will take Quinnen Williams. But I think this deal gets done unless Washington, we see a brothers trade here with the Grudens at 4, which would be a shocker.
Yeah, now let's get into the Raiders because they are very, very interesting. They've sent everybody away. It's like Survivor. There's 2 guys on an island. You got Mayock, you got Gruden. No one else is around anywhere near the organization right now. And I read something that they said for fear that their big plan could get thrown to the wolves. What possibly could this dynamic, huge, groundbreaking attempt be for the Oakland Raiders?
God, it's insane because we've heard everyone connected to them. Literally, Quinnen Williams, Devin White, Ed Oliver, and now the most recent name is Dwayne Haskins. Now, I know a lot of Raiders fans laugh at the thought of that, but this is where it gets really interesting. The division in Oakland right now is that there are coaches there that really like Dwayne Haskins. There are also coaches there that are not sold Derek Carr is the future. So is Oakland sitting there at 4 knowing that Dwayne Haskins might fall into their lap or hoping he falls into their lap? There's a lot of rumors about that right now. Or are they trying to play someone to trade up with the Jets so Oakland gets Quinnen Williams? That's kind of where I'm leaning right now. I do think they want the Jets to get out of that pick in fear that if they don't, the Jets will take Quinnen Williams, and that's been their guy all along. This is a team that needs stars on the defensive line because they traded Khalil Mack. They don't have any. I know they used a lot of picks in that area last year. I think Maurice Hurst could be an okay player. P.J. Hall hasn't shown anything yet right now. So Oakland, all options are on the table for them right now, and it's very, very interesting.
All right, so if Haskins goes 3 and Williams goes 4, now you're to Tampa at 5 with Devin White and Josh Allen still on the board.
And I think it would be Devin White. I think Todd Bowles, I know Todd Bowles picked Darren Lee here when he was in New York. That was Todd Bowles' pick. He wants speed at linebacker. He wants leadership at linebacker. Tampa has loved Devin White for months now. I think if he's sitting there at 5, they would celebrate with happiness that they didn't have to move to get him.
All right, so you were telling me now that the way we just went through the machinations of the first 5 picks, there's a legitimate chance that my New York Football Giants are landing maybe an elite talent at edge rusher, 6th overall in Josh Allen.
I wouldn't rule it out at all. I would not rule that out at all. They get the guy who is originally from Jersey. Now, the interesting thing with the Giants here, I have a belief that Dave Gettleman has done a really nice job for once here with the smoke screens and that the Giants want a quarterback at 6. as much as we keep hearing they are content taking one at 17, there's not even a guarantee that there will be one at 17. I don't see how a team can take that kind of risk.
So who do you think he likes? Because, I'm based out of New York, and we try to break down the code every day, and we have no idea of what's going on half the time. Do you look at him and say he likes Jones? We've heard that. Locke, we've heard that. Everyone seems to be opposed to the fact that Dwayne Haskins is someone he's interested in. And then lately you've heard the rumor heat up that maybe Josh Rosen lands to the New York Giants at some point.
Yeah, there's a lot to dissect here. I think they do, obviously Daniel Jones, there was a lot of smoke around them taking him at 17. I think there's almost so much buzz there right now. It's hard to fully believe it. I'm going to take a contrarian opinion here, Dave. I know their scouting staff did a ton of work on Dwayne Haskins this year. I think they also have feared that somebody would take him before them and didn't want anything to get out on their interest in him. I think they do like Dwayne Haskins, and I think if he was sitting there at 6, Dave Gettleman values the front 7 more than anything. He's going to spend premium assets there. I think they'd be faced with a very tough decision in passing on Dwayne Haskins. That's the type of decision that can get you fired very, very quickly. And I'm of the belief that they do like the player.
But it sounds like Connor Rogers, Bleacher Report, joining us here on the Stephen A. Smith Show with Dave Rothenberg sitting in. It sounds like you don't think that Haskins will be there for the Giants at 6.
I don't, because like I said to you earlier, I think the Redskins are hell-bent on getting this trade done. They've loved this player for months, and they need a quarterback. I don't think Alex Smith will ever play football again, and even if he does, you're not relying on him. How long are they want Case Keenum to be the face of the franchise there? They need a guy that is the face of the franchise, and I think a lot of people in that building believe it's Dwayne Haskins, and if they can find the right trade, they'll do whatever it takes to go up and get him.
All right, now let's say the Giants don't get Haskins. He falls through their fingers. The Jets move back, and the Giants wind up with Josh Allen at 6, which I think the Giants and Giants fans would be very excited about. Now what happens? Now you've got 17, you've got 37, you've got 3 picks in the 5th round, 2 in the 4th, it's 6. Like, you have a ton of picks later in this draft. Do you put some of those together and move up to get the quarterback in the 10, 11, 12 range?
I mean, I certainly would. I think I'd want to get ahead of Cincinnati. I don't think Denver is taking a quarterback anymore. They might be a team interested in trading out. Like you said, Dave, the Giants have draft capital here. They can make a move. And going back from, say, 10 to 17 is not a gigantic jump, especially it'll probably cost a second-round pick, something in that range. And I think the Giants simply have to get a quarterback, whether that is Drew Lock, Daniel Jones. I'm not a Jones believer personally. I'm even a little skeptical of Lock, even though there are round 1 traits there. But I think Gettleman will be much more aggressive in getting a quarterback than he's played on in these press conferences recently.
And you're not a huge fan of Drew Lock?
Not the biggest fan, but guess what? These second-round graded quarterbacks go in the first round. That's simply how it is. I think Kyler Murray and Dwayne Haskins there's a gap there. There's a big gap there.
How much better, because my mindset was that the Giants really dropped the ball and should have taken the quarterback in Darnold last year and not Barkley, as sensational as he is.
Me too.
How much better is last year's quarterback crop than this year's class?
I think it's a lot better. I think Kyler Murray has some really special traits, and I think he's going to be a superstar with Cliff Kingsbury. I think Haskins, of course, a one-year starter, a fantastic year. He's still got some developing to go. But you look at Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, even Josh Rosen's talent, even though he got pummeled this year, and did not stand a chance. Those guys had better talent, I think. I think Kyler can be mixed into the group. I truly believe he's that special, and that's why he's going to be the number 1 pick in this draft a year after that team just took a quarterback in the top 10. So it's not a great group, and there will be teams there that'll say, hey, like the Dolphins. The Dolphins will sit there and say, we'll wait next year. We like Justin Herbert. We like Tua Tagovailoa, Jake Fromm from Georgia. There will be plenty of teams that sit back, and the Broncos will roll with Flacco. But I just don't think the Giants are one of them. I think the Giants are going to be really proactive in taking someone, sitting him behind Eli for however long that may be, and it'll be from this group.
Do you like Daniel Jones?
I don't. I just don't see it. I've seen him in person. I've watched all of his games. I don't think he really has a strong arm. I don't think he was overly accurate. The athleticism is okay. Every time people talk about him, they bring up who he was coached by, nothing about the player. That's a little frustrating to me. And I just can't stomach spending a first-round pick on that player.
Connor Rogers, Bleacher Report, joining us here on ESPN Radio. Josh Rosen traded before tomorrow, traded by the end of the weekend. Do they hold on to him into the summer? Like, what happens to him?
I think it'll be sometime during the weekend. They don't want to create an environment with Josh Rosen and Kyler Murray that would be toxic very, very quickly. Josh Rosen is already publicly upset about this. He said it to, I believe, Sports Illustrated. He's not really happy how things have gone down this offseason. It creates for a very interesting scenario there, one that they won't risk setting up. I think the Chargers are quietly in this. That's a place where you could stash him. Philip Rivers has not really been into having his hair on the roster, but I think that's got to change at some point. I think the Chargers can get it done for a second-round pick. I would love to see the Giants make this call for their second-round pick. I think you can load up on that defensive line talent that Dave Gettleman wants to do, and you could develop Rosen. I just haven't heard that they have as much interest as we're led on to believe. The same could be said for Washington.
All right. Before I let you go, and I've appreciated your time, you bring a lot of great information to the table. I want to put you on the spot again. Give me one or two guys that people like, and you look at and you say, I just don't get it. Guys that are going to go tomorrow in the first round.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I think Daniel Jones, unfortunately, I've said my case on him before. I don't see it as a round one player. One of the more interesting ones here for you, Dave, I think Rocky Sin, the corner from Temple, he's a fine player. I've heard he's going to go 20 overall to the Steelers. That is 20 to 35 spots higher than I expected, but I've heard that pick has been written in for a while. I know the Giants like Dexter Lawrence a lot. I'm curious to see how creative they get to acquire a player like that for their front seven, which would still surprise me. They have talent on the interior of the defensive line. So those are some guys being thrown into this round one conversation that I just think it would be a bit of a reach.
And is there a guy that's going to go day two, even day three if you want, that people like but they're not in love with, that you look at and you say, look out, this guy's going to be a player?
Yeah, I think there's a handful. I think David Montgomery from Iowa State is going to be one of the better running backs in football in a couple of years. He could fall all the way to the third round. I think when you look at Mecole Hardman from Georgia, I mean, he's explosive and electric. The touches just weren't there in that Georgia offense at all times. And Taylor Rapp, he ran a 4.7 at his pro day, which shocked teams. He was on round one boards across the league at the safety position. I've heard he could even fall to the third round right now. And I mean, listen, Tony Jefferson, he's another guy that ran a 4.7. Now he's a Pro Bowl safety. So those guys usually find a way to pan out despite bad 40 times.
All right, here, Connor, this is what I'd like to put on the table. I'd like to have full access to you at any point. So if I'm feeling...
Anytime.
At any point, but any point, like 11 o'clock at night, 1:30 in the morning, 5:15 if I wake up and I'm concerned about Daniel Jones going to the Giants. Like, I would like to have full access that if I need to get in touch with you, I can, and you can talk me off the ledge.
I will text your producer my phone number. I don't sleep this week. I'm on the East Coast. I think our times will align. We'll get it done.
I appreciate it. You do good work, my friend. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot, Dave. Have a good one.
All right, that is Connor Rogers from Bleacher Report, who's very, very good. Does an excellent job of breaking it all down. And there you hear it. Sounds like the Redskins are all in on Dwayne Haskins. And when there's a team that wants to get out of 3 and a team that wants to get into 3, it can make it much, much easier. Now, when you're hiring, you don't want to waste time sorting through dozens of irrelevant resumes. You want an efficient way to get a short list of qualified candidates. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post a job in minutes, set up screener questions based on your job requirements, then zero in on qualified candidates using an intuitive online dashboard. It's all very smart. Discover why 3 million businesses use Indeed for hiring. Post a job today at Indeed.com/hire. Search for greatness. Search Indeed. 888-SAY-ESPN. 888-729-3776. We're going to go from here through the end of the show, breaking down the NFL draft. You know what you know who you want, you know who you don't want. I'm a Giants fan. I've heard this. I stand by it. Daniel Jones, I want no part of him. I don't want any part of Daniel Jones. I'm sure he's a great kid. I'm sure Cutcliffe thinks he's a sensational quarterback. His arm strength is not what a lot of legitimate NFL quarterbacks can bring to the table, and that makes me very nervous. All right, Drew Lock, the upside is absolutely there. But again, and I don't mean to make this completely Giant-centric, they laid an egg last year in the draft by not taking Sam Darnold and taking Saquon Barkley. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Let's go to Ken in Pennsylvania. Ken wants to talk a little NFL draft on ESPN Radio. What's up, buddy?
First off, congratulations on getting this spot. You do a really great job with substituting for Stephen A.
Thank you. Let me ask you a question now. Do you find me to be the number one substitute for Stephen A?
Don't get crazy. Don't get crazy.
All right, thanks a lot.
Tomorrow at this time, I think you're going to be ecstatic. You You really want Kyler Murray to be the first pick. You really want that New York Jet trade to happen. And then not only will Josh Allen fall in your lap at 6, the Giants are going to use their trade value or their draft value not to pick this year's quarterback, to trade for Josh Rosen. They're going to end up with Josh Allen and Josh Rosen, and you will be the happiest New York Giants fan on the face of the earth.
Ken, I will tell you what. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it. If the Giants go Josh Allen 6, another big-time defensive player or offensive lineman or whoever, as far as I care, at 17, and 37, they turn in to Josh Rosen, you're right. I will be ecstatic. Because you know why? What happens if he's awful? Okay, you know what? Eli plays 8 games. The kid's already played a year. You put him in there for another 8 games. He's terrible. They go 1-7 with him at the quarterback spot. Well, you know what? All right. No big deal. I probably won 3 or 4 games. I go right back at it next year. Right? Jake Fromm, Tua, Herbert. I could take any of those kids at that point. See, here's the thing. If you don't have the quarterback, you can't compete in this game. Simple. Period. End of sentence. If you don't have the quarterback, you can't compete in this game. So if it means I take a 2 and roll the dice to bring that in this year, and that doesn't work, and I take next year's 1, as long as I get the quarterback, it makes almost everything that much better. All right, 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. We're coming back on ESPN.
That Odell Beckham Jr. was the problem. And we all know that the New York Giants were a problem. Got a busy signal. I need that fixed, please. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. That's what we're talking about here. So when you imply that Odell Beckham Jr. is the problem, that really, really rubs me the wrong way. Because everybody and their mother knows Eli Manning was the problem. Let's stop that nonsense. Let's be honest about what's transpired with the New York Giants. Let's understand that as the NFL draft approaches this Thursday, we're all hoping and praying that the Giants are smart enough to take Dwayne Haskins. Not because that's your only need, but it's because Eli Manning has been relatively bad over the last 2 or 3 years that we know it's time to move in a different direction.